Do you ever struggle reaching a middle game and not knowing what to do? Do you ever struggle with the question of what is my plan in this position? This is a perfect example to train the skill of reading the board properly and creating a strong plan accordingly. A fresh example from a student game, Black to Play. First of all, folks, please stop the video and give yourself some time to truly grasp this position. Take your time and look at those imbalances. Look at those differences between two positions. Try to identify the key factor in this position. Because once you identify the true gist of the position, then good ideas will come to your mind naturally. Please, this is a beautiful position. You will be rewarded in the end if you give your best to this orientation phase. What are those things that attract your attention from this position, folks? Let's start from the very basics. Well, Black has the bishop pair. Maybe some of you have noticed this factor. What else are you seeing? Black has a central pawn on e5. White has no central pawn in this position. I'm just listing the differences between two positions. Okay? And we are slowly coming to maybe the key element. Have you seen the king's locations, folks? The kings have castled on opposite flanks. This is the most important information that you should receive from this position. Kings castle on opposite flanks, which means this game will be revolving around pawn storms, attack, violence, opening up lines on different flanks, speed, timing, attack, and checkmate. Please look what I'm doing so far. I'm not looking at moves. I'm not looking at random moves. I'm just listing the general orientation from this position, right? At least most of the time in the middle game when kings castle on opposite flanks, and if there are queens present on both sides, then attack becomes the most important plan for both sides. Attacking on opposite flanks, opening up lines. Okay? This is a chess knowledge, chess pattern across years of experience, obviously, that strong players distill this in their brains. So they know what to look for in this position, given the orientation phase. Now, please, folks, my second prompt to you. Now you have this information. Please formulate a good plan for Black here. What is your goal? Your goal is to open up lines on the king side and attack the white king. This orientation phase leads us to the second important clue about this position. Have you noticed the pawns on h3 and a6, folks? These pawns are called hook pawns in chess, and they really speed up the attack for the opposing side. Why? Because if you ever push g5 and g4, there will be contact between those two pawns, which favors Black, right? Because your goal is to open up lines on the king side. So generally, we don't want to push pawns in front of our king when there are attacking potential for the opponent. Correct? Also look at the pawn on a6. Because there's a pawn on a6, white has a chance to play b4, b5 very quickly and open up lines on the queen side. So, given the orientation phase, kings on opposite flanks, and given the presence of hook pawns on both sides, I'm gaining this crucial information of speeding up my attack and maybe pushing my g-pawn to make contact with the h-pawn as soon as possible. And the same for white. Whites want to push Barry to contact with Adam, right? Barry will soon meet Adam on the queen side, and Gary will meet Harry on the king side very, very soon. So, given this orientation phase, folks, what are the candidate moves for Black? Now please list those moves that speak to the position. You're a great player, folks, if you listed the move g5 in your candidate list. g5 is the most logical move for Black because I want to attack you as soon as possible and open up lines. The question is, does g5 really work? Because it looks like you're dropping a pawn, no? they can take the pawn on g5. And only strong players can go beyond these surface features, and they use some tactics and short calculations to make their great strategic ideas work. Now, please, folks, please calculate this line. g5, knight takes g5. What is your next move? What is your next move at that moment, folks? What is the most logical move, in fact, for black? Of course, you will go rook g8 and you will thank white for giving you the open g file. Your rook became a happy piece on g8. It comes with tempo on the knight as well. And now the final point that you might have noticed at the orientation phase, that the queen on c6 is an excellent piece, eyeing the pawn on g2. In conjunction with the rook on g8, now you see the potential for black to go for a mating attack against the white king. I won't put it on the board, folks. Please visualize. That's a great visualization exercise. g5, knight takes g5, rook g8. What can white play at that moment? The knight is hanging, right? If they go h4 to support the knight, can you tell me the good move? Of course, we will go h6 to chase away that knight, and then catastrophe is happening, right? We are coming there, folks. We are coming there very, very soon. Let's put this on the board. g5 is the best. Speaks to the position, right? Knight takes g5. Rook g8, of course. This was your idea. It's already visible that knight e6 is a blunder because they get mated on g2, right? That's the first point. That's what I mean by very short calculations in chess. It doesn't require deep calculation. You see it. So after rook g8, knight e6 doesn't work. And let's say white goes f4 to cement the knight on g5. What should we play in this position, folks? Of course, the most logical is to chase that knight away and activate our rook. Knight f3 is the only move. Can you see how this rook is now becoming a happy piece and how this bishop is now taking that pawn on h3? Your attack has started first on the king side, and that's everything in those pawn storm positions. After rook g8, if they support the knight with h4, comes h6 anyway. Knight f3 is the only move, and then comes this bishop's potential. Bishop h3, folks. Can you see how our attack is building on the king side? This forces the move g3, but at the very least you can take the rook. But in this position, if you see a good move, look for a better one. Bishop g4 pins the knight and highlights white's problems in this position, folks. Not only this is the first threat, but the second threat is e4 and collect that knight, let's say after the move king g2. Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it beautiful, folks? Your attack is building. They have to take the knight, and now you just up a piece for nothing in this position. Black is completely winning. So look what we just learned. We learned when to sacrifice a pawn in chess. We learned to read the board properly. Timing was everything in this position, and you should observe this pawn as a piece of wood getting in the way of your rook. It involves a mental shift. Many people never observe their own pawns as mere hindrances, getting in the way of your other pieces to join the attack. But once you break that barrier, g5 is the most logical move by far, right? Otherwise, you will go g4, open up lines, rook g8 is coming, by far the most natural move. Now, can you guess what happened in the actual game? My student played a very instructive mistake of h6. He's only preparing the move g5, and he's wasting one full tempo in this position. He's acting materialistically. He doesn't observe this pawn needs to be sacrificed for this rook to join the game as soon as possible. In those moments, a single tempo is everything, because right now white will use that tempo to either push d4 or b4, b5 and create an attack on the opposite flank. Both of these moves for white is good enough to equalize the game completely. For example, b4 is a very logical try. b5 is coming, hook pawn is on a6, and after g5 comes b5, and if you take that pawn, this rook is becoming happy. You cannot take the pawn on b5, but then the queen needs to leave that beautiful spot. Can you see it, folks? A single tempo is changing everything. Queen b6 comes d4 or a5 even. White is completely messing up your ideas on the queen side. They can even play b6 to bury the queen, and you totally messed up this position. White is slightly better in this position. After b5, maybe queen c4 is the only move, but then comes d3. The queen is running short of squares. Engine says queen b4 is fine for black, but you need to calculate so many moves. Even this queen d2 sacrifice, you cannot take the bishop. The queen is lost. Then comes bishop a3 ideas. You totally messed up this position. You should say goodbye to your attack on the king side. Look, the lesson from this example is this: a single tempo is completely shifting the entire momentum when kings castle on opposite flanks and when there are hook pawns on both sides. In fact, after the slow move h6, even a very natural move d4 is good enough because white is striking right in the center of the board. That's usually a very good policy in chess. When they're attacking you on the flanks, central counterpunch is usually a good recipe. This move directly hits the pawn on e5, and if you push e4, then white is a very strong move, d5, creating this beautiful d4 square for their knight, and that knight is now coming to the game. Tactics start to work in white's favor. You can take on c3 with this attack on the queen, but in fact, after the smoke clears, white ends up in an okay position because of your knight problem on b2. Well, the knight will be captured after rook a2. You have some pawns for the exchange, but still, white has no major problems in this position. By the way, folks, this game is still extremely sharp after g5. White should not grab the pawn. We are not playing checkers, right? Grabbing the pawn only helps speed up black's attack. So white should instead focus on their attack on the opposite flank. That's also a big lesson in those positions. You have no time to waste grabbing random pawns. You should focus on your own pawn storm on the other side of the board. b4 is the best, but then because you already played g5, g4 comes with an attack on the knight, and your bishop is becoming a happy creature, comes with some ideas as well. Rook g8 is coming, black's attack is starting first on the king side. Still, the game is very sharp after b5. You should not take the pawn because this rook is becoming happy. Queen c4 is the best move, but then white can neutralize your queen with this move of queen e2, or they can first take on a6 and then play queen e2 in this position to force a queen trade because their king was feeling unsafe. And after takes, yes, black is still having a better position, but that's, let's say, more positional in nature because of the bishop pair and better central control. Folks, look at the big picture. I won't dive into every single move in detail. This video was done to teach you how to read the board properly and how to formulate a strong middle game plan. I hope you got the right lessons from this example, right? Please give me feedback on YouTube. What was your initial thought when you look at this position? What were your observations in this orientation phase? And did my conclusions surprise you in the end? Did you learn some important lessons from this video? I know it's a very common issue for many players to formulate a good middle game plan. They make some moves in the opening, they reach a middle game, then they are clueless. They have no idea what to do in the middle games, right? So this video was done to tackle that problem in chess. Obviously, getting a good chess understanding, building up those patterns will help you find those plans more naturally. But I wanted to show you some things that you can transfer to other positions, right? Most middle game positions involve kings on opposite flanks. So this information you can use in other positions. Plus, most middle games involve such hook pawns that you can use to open up lines on different flanks. So this is the basic conclusion from this video. Also, please, when to sacrifice. That's a final benefit of this video. People don't know when exactly to sacrifice pawns in chess. And when such instructive mistakes like h6 take place in the actual games, I get inspired to make my videos on YouTube because this is a great teachable moment. I hope you agree, guys. I love those positions, and I will catch you on the next episode. Please ask me anything on YouTube. I will respond to each and every one of you. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Bye-bye.